So I am 25 years old and I thought it would be fun to share 25 life lessons that I have. These aren't necessarily the ones that I think are my favorite of all time, but they are the ones that I'm thinking about a lot at the moment. And I've got my fun stack of books here, which we're gonna go through as well. So let's get into it. So I thought for lesson one, we would start with one of the biggest problems of my life so far, which is not knowing what to do for a job, which is a pretty lucky problem to have. But anyway, the way I've started to think about this is with this idea of generating clarity, which I got from Brendan Burchard's book, High Performance Habits. So we all expect to just have clarity over what we want to do and what decisions we want to make, but actually clarity is something that we should work to generate over our whole lives consistently. So even the people who feel like they were born to do something had to find that thing in the first place. No one is actually born knowing exactly what they want to do. They just, through trial and error, figure out that they like these things and don't like these things. And some people find that very early on, and some people will find it later on, which is why I think that for most people in your 20s, it's worth experimenting and exploring and trying lots of different things so you can find the things that work for you and that you enjoy, and then you can do those for the rest of your life and hopefully make some money as well. And yeah, this is the way I've started to think about this problem of generating clarity over time, trying lots of different things and then reflecting on those experiences, thinking about what I enjoy, what I find meaningful, and then doing more of those things and less of the things that I don't like doing. Lesson two is that there are no unique messages, there are only unique messengers. So there's this quote that I really like from Andre Gide, which is that everything that needs to be said has already been said, but since no one was listening, everything needs to be said again. And this idea of repeating other people is something I was really conscious of doing and still am conscious of doing on my YouTube channel. And when I started out especially, I really felt like, what have I got to add to the conversation and to the world? I've really got nothing to say. But the more you get into it, the more you realize that it's just about the messenger. It's not necessarily about the message. And this book here, Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon, is really the one to read because it's about how nothing is original and everyone is just copying everyone and being inspired by everyone. So if you're kind of in that boat, then I definitely recommend reading this book. And then also his other one, Keep Going, which is around like staying creative, staying original, and trying to keep coming up with ideas and being inspired and all that good stuff. So there are no unique messages, there are only unique messengers. Lesson three is that fear of the thing is almost always worse than the thing itself. So I have had to learn this lesson so many times with exams, with interviews, with just scary stuff in general, with putting stuff online like this YouTube channel. And I almost always realize that the thing is just, it's so much worse in my head than it is in real life. And so whatever it is you're scared of doing, it's likely that it's a lot worse in your head than it actually is in reality. Lesson four is about compound interest. So Albert Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, and people generally talk about it in reference to money. So if you get 10% on return on your money every single year, then your returns compound on each other and you get more and more money over time. But I also think about it a lot in terms of the other parts of my life. So my health and relationships and happiness. I think the more that you invest in these things, the more they compound on themselves in the long term. And yeah, the more reward you get from it in the long term as well. Another example that I really like with compound interest is actually keeping a diary. So the more you regularly do it, then in the long term, the more stuff you've got to look back on, and the further away you are from your diary in the future, the more interesting your diary becomes because you remember less of it. And then also the more stuff you recorded at the time, the more it can like link together and the more you kind of can build a picture of what you were doing in the past. And I just think that's kind of a good example of compounding returns. Like the more you invest, the more consistently you invest, and the more return you get in the long term. Lesson five is about hedonic adaptation. So this is the name for that feeling you get when something new or novel happens in your life. Maybe you get a new iPhone, or maybe you get a new job and you feel really excited about it. But then when you get it, over time you become more used to having it, and that is called hedonic adaptation. You adapt to the feeling of hedonism. And I think that it's a useful thing to just be aware of, because when you want something new and you're like, when I get this thing, everything's going to change, you actually when you get that thing, normally yeah, it's fun for a bit, but then you get used to it and you kind of return to the level that you were at previously. And so whenever you're thinking about like, yeah, my life's going to change when I get this one thing, then you'll probably just adapt when you get it, and so it won't be that big a deal. Yes, it's really nice to look forward to getting stuff in the future, but it's just worth bearing in mind that whenever you get something in the future, you'll probably adapt to having that thing and it will become normal again for you. Lesson 6 is that indecision is the thief of time. I like this one because I really believe that decision making is one of the best skills that you can try and work on, because we have millions of decisions to make every day, and these little decisions that we make add up to what our lives look like. So I'm trying to become better at decision making, and the time that I feel most vulnerable is when I'm in the supermarket and I have literally millions of options available to me, and I find it really overwhelming. I just stare at stuff and thinking about all the different reasons why I might need something, and it's really, really tricky. But I end up wasting so much time just thinking about all the different scenarios, about all the different things that I'll buy or need. And so, yeah, I just think making the decision is often way better than not making the decision and potentially making a slightly better decision, because normally if you just make the decision, everything's fine, you learn something, and then you can make a better decision next time. So the next few are actually about decision making. And so lesson 7 is 51% decisions. And this I got from Stephen Bartlett's book, Happy Sexy Millionaire. And 51% decisions are when you try and gather all the data and information that you have available to you about a difficult decision, and then you try and get to 51% certainty about making a certain decision, and then you just make that decision. Life is not easy, and you might make the wrong decision, and that's completely fine. You have to accept that. But as soon as you've got to 51% certainty, really, you can't hope for anything more, because 100% certainty is never going to come. We can't be 100% certain about any decision. And so when I think about what level of certainty I'm normally at about a difficult decision, it's normally around 80 to 90%. And so I realize that I'm just stressed because I haven't got that final 20 to 10%. So when I realize like, oh, I'm probably never going to get that, I need to just make this decision, then that makes me feel a lot better. Lesson 8 is start, then learn. So this helps me with decision making, because whenever I'm thinking about starting something that I think will be difficult, like learning a new skill or just like anything that I think might be challenging, I just think I need to start and then learn about what I'm finding difficult and what I'll need. Lots of people stall before they start and think, okay, I need to get this equipment, I need to get this teacher, I need to talk to this person, I need to do this amount of research. You're just way better off just starting and then learning as you go. Lesson 9 is the circle of control. So the circle of control is a kind of technique to help you make decisions. So you think about everything that's inside the circle is in your control, and everything that's outside the circle is outside of your control. So things that are inside the circle might be things like your attitude, your reactions, your behaviors, your expectations, what you say, everything basically to do with you. And then everything else pretty much in the world, like the weather, the news, traffic, what other people say, other people's behaviors, literally everything else is outside of the circle. I use this a lot. Just in a sudden moment, I'll just be thinking, okay, I've got a decision to make. What can I actually do? What can I not do? And I just forget about all the things that aren't in my control. And I think about, okay, how can I fix this situation or deal with this situation or whatever? And it just means you waste less time thinking about all the things that are kind of annoying, but that are outside your control. Lesson 10 is that vulnerability is a strength. So I learned this lesson in lots of different areas. One of the biggest areas is when I lost my middle finger on my right hand through an accident that I had. And I had to learn to talk about it and to open up to people about my experience and this accident that I had. And the book that you want to read about this is Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. She talks about how the courage to be vulnerable transforms the way we live, love, parent, and lead. When you have the courage to just show up as your full self, authentically, unapologetically, then your life will improve, because people will understand you better and people will feel like you're more genuine and you connect with them better. And it just, vulnerability is a strength. The more vulnerable you can be in your life, I think the better off you will be. Lesson 11 is that relationships are the most important thing. And by that, I mean the thing that most likely lead to happiness and to make people have good lives. And there's loads of ways that I've learned this lesson. One is from this Harvard professor who did a TED talk, who spoke about this study of 700 people and recorded all the different things that made them happiest over their lives, and relationships came out as the number one thing. And then also this book, Tuesdays with Maury, which is about a dying man called Maury, a real dying man, who talks about all the things that he kind of wish he knew when he was younger and the lessons that he realizes now as he's dying. And he's extremely open about what it is like to die. And one of the things that he feels really strongly about is that the meaning and connection that you get from your relationships is what makes you most happy. So that's something that I am trying to consider more and bring into my life as much as possible. Lesson 12 is around building the life that you want. So I got this lesson from Grace Lorden's book, Think Big. And this book is take small steps and build the future that you want. It's about building, a life and a career that really works for you. And the coolest idea in here, I think, is this idea that Grace always says that when we imagine our lives, let's say 3 years in the future, and we imagine the best scenario for us, the dream life, we often imagine it not really working out for us just because we think, oh, good things don't happen to me, or like that's not, that will never actually happen for me. But what she suggests doing is just imagining that dream life in 3 years' time. Imagine if it actually did work out for us. Okay, so what skills would we need to start learning now? What knowledge and experiences would we need to start having now to prepare for that life and get us closer to that life in 3 years' time? I really love this idea of building the life that you want, just slowly over time, making small decisions to get you closer to the life that you want. And the life that you want might change as you make these decisions and as time passes. But I think just imagining a really awesome life in the future and then just thinking, okay, what am I going to need in that life? And just taking small steps to get closer to that. I think that is a really powerful idea. Lesson 13 is that perspective is everything. So I think about this a lot because I think the way that you choose to see the events of your life is really, really important to how you feel about your life. And I learned this in a few different ways. One is that Mo Gaudat talks about this happiness equation, which is that the events, your happiness is greater than or equal to the events of your life minus your expectations. So the way that you perceive the events of your life, like the way you feel about them, and then the way you expect the events of your life to turn out is really, really important. So you can choose to see the events of your life however you want, and you could be in many worse scenarios than you are right now. You could be in Ukraine being invaded by Russia, you could have no home, you could be very hungry, all sorts of different things. The way that you choose to perceive the events of your life is an important lesson to internalize. Lesson 14 is learning how to quit. So I quit my job as a full-time management consultant earlier in the year, and it was a really great decision. I'm really happy that I made it, but it was really, really scary at the time, and I didn't know if quitting was the right thing to do. The thing that really helped me was this quitting framework that I'll put up on the screen from this book, Happy Sexy Millionaire, again from Stephen Bartlett. When you quit, you leave behind things that aren't working for you, that aren't serving you, that aren't making your life better, and you just increase the chances that you'll find more things that do make your life better. So get better at quitting. Lesson 15 is around millennial guilt. So I'm a millennial. I was born in 1996, which is just within the millennial age bracket. And I think a lot of millennials feel this guilt around the state of the world and all the problems that the world has. And we often feel like we have to work on problems that help the world be a better place. I used to feel like I had to work in sustainability because that was like the biggest problem that the world had was climate change. And I think that millennials actually aren't served very well by this guilt. I think if you're working on something that improves the world in some way, then you're doing the right thing. Lesson 16 is that global progress is a team effort. So I really like this idea of that moving the world forwards, which is what I think we should all be trying to do, just like improving the quality of life all around the world, is a team effort, and we all have a role to play. Because I used to really worry, like, what am I really helping the world do anything? Am I helping society by working as a management consultant or making videos on YouTube? And I realized that everyone is part of this team that is moving the world forward. So for example, one of the world's most pressing problems is climate change. And so we need scientists to work on solving that problem. But scientists need farmers to grow food so that the scientists can eat. And then the farmers need programmers to program different technology that they can use to farm efficiently. And then programmers need people in the entertainment industry to make entertainment so that the programmers can relax and have fun and switch off. And so when you think about this, like this team effort of global progress, I think it's just a really nice idea. And it's just like, oh, I can do something that just contributes to the world, and then I don't need to really, really worry about like which problem I'm helping to solve. There are so many pressing problems in the world. If you feel like you're working on something that is making the world a better place, then you're doing the right thing. Lesson 17 is that money solves your money problems. So I really like this because it reminds me that money is not going to solve all of my problems. And I think about getting more money in the future, and need to remind myself that, yeah, money isn't going to solve everything. And I think there's two parts to this. There's money problems that you actually have and money problems that you decide to have. So money problems that you actually have are things like paying for somewhere to live and living costs in general, like eating and having water and things like that. And then and maybe a healthy social life is something that you need to have. And then all the things that you decide to have, like having a bigger house and more clothes and doing more crazy things, those are very much money problems that you decide to have. There are obviously some overlaps here and some blurred lines between what money problems you actually have and what money problems you decide to have. But I just like the phrase because it reminds me that, yes, you might have lots of problems and money might help solve some of them. It's not going to solve all your problems. Lesson 18 is to show your work. And so I got this lesson from this book, Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. And this book is part of the 3-part trilogy with the other 2 books I mentioned earlier. And he basically says that whatever you're working on, whatever you're doing, if you show your work online, then your life will improve, basically, because you'll connect with more and more people, and more and more people will find you and take an interest in what you're doing, and potentially you can earn some money. And since I started showing my work online, my life has improved massively. So yeah, whatever it is that you're doing, if you feel like you want to show it online or try showing stuff online, then I'd really, really recommend getting into it. Lesson 19 is the 2 keys to consistency. And I think the only 2 things you need to be consistent at anything are you need to enjoy it, and then you need to be held accountable for doing it. And so that accountability is either to yourself, so you just feel like bad about yourself when you don't do it, or someone else or a group of other people are holding you accountable for not doing that thing. So I think about this a lot with YouTube, for example. I know that I upload every Sunday, and I think there's like a couple people who are hoping that I will upload on the Sunday, and I feel accountable to them. So if I don't do it, I feel bad. They're disappointed, maybe, I don't know. And yeah, it's just that accountability is really, really important. And I also really enjoy making YouTube videos, and I wouldn't continue if I didn't. So yeah, enjoyment and accountability. Lesson 20 is that who you surround yourself with is who you become. I really like this lesson because I think that, the people you surround yourself with is really important, and they can build you up or put you down. And I think that we want to try and find people who build us up. And if you can't do that, if you feel like there are so many people around you who are negative and bringing you down, I think the escape for this is finding good books and good podcasts and good resources on the internet that will inspire you and build you up, because there's so many. And I definitely feel like I've got a lot of inspiration and advice and mentoring from the internet over the last few years. So yeah, who you surround yourself with is who you become. Lesson 21 is that learning is our superpower. As humans, it's not really that groundbreaking, but you can learn to do basically anything within the laws of physics. And I think when you realize that and you have a real growth mindset, then the world is your oyster. Lesson 22 is that greatness is good enough repeatedly. I really like this lesson, and I love this quote as well from Michael Jordan, which says that I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take a game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. So even Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, fails consistently. So I just like this idea that his greatness came from being good enough repeatedly. If you want to read a book on becoming great to yourself and how small habits and wins throughout the day can lead to remarkable results, then I recommend this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. He just talks about how the habits that you have in your life basically define who you are and what you will do. Lesson 23 is pick and choose. So this is something that I came up with because I feel like there's so many philosophies in life and so many ways of thinking about the world and thinking about what's meaningful and finding answers to difficult questions. And so the way I approach it is just finding all the different people who inspire me and all the different ideas, and I just like pick my favorite ones. I just pick the things that I like all these different books that I've got. I just pick the ideas that I like, and I take the things that work for me and make my life better. I don't worry about finding one whole entire philosophy for life that kind of answers every question or something that I can just live by. I just pick and choose my favorite things. Lesson 24 is learn how to manage risk. So the book that you want to read on risk is this book, Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? It just has, it's about achieving your goals, and I made a video on that which you can watch here, but it just has a section about risk, which is really, really helpful. The best thing that I learned from here is just this question: what is the risk of doing nothing? So whenever you have a big decision to make, just ask yourself, what is the risk of doing nothing? Maybe it's like staying in a job that you don't like, or it's not trying that thing that you wanted to do. if you do nothing, then what will happen? Maybe you'll be, you know, sad that you never tried that thing. That maybe that's the risk. And I think it can just get you out of that state of inaction. That question, what's the risk of doing nothing, is something I asked about myself about quitting my job earlier in the year. And it really, really helped me get over the line and actually quit, because I realized that there was a risk to doing nothing. There was a risk of losing more time, not doing things that I wanted to do, and staying in a job that wasn't really right for me. So yeah, learn to manage risk. Lesson 25 is keep a diary or a journal or whatever you call it. And the reason I'm saying this last is because it's the single biggest thing that has changed my life over the past 6 years since I started one. And then I made a video recently about my second brain, because I started moving my diary to my phone. And you can watch my video on my second brain, because I started writing down more things, not just like what happened and how I was feeling about it, but also more things that I wanted to remember. And just this process of writing your thoughts down is so helpful to understanding yourself. And if you understand yourself, then you can make better decisions for your life. It's not a particularly new piece of advice, but the more I know about myself, the more problems I feel like I'm able to solve for myself. So since I started learning a lot about myself, or really kind of like working on that, a lot of things have changed for me, and I feel like I can make lots of better decisions. So that is my final lesson. So those are my 25 lessons, and I'm pretty tired now because that actually took a lot of energy to film. But if you want to watch a video around why I quit my job earlier in the year, then watch this video here. And I also made a video about day in my life as a consultant, so watch that video here. But thank you so much for watching, and excuse me, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.